Hey guys, so I was putting in your grades for your legislative branch quiz. I'm using Jenny's quiz because she did awesome on it. And I think that we have some gaps going on between class and when we're going home and studying and then when we take a quiz. So I just wanted to make a quick video and clear up some of the differences between powers of Congress, what is implied, what is expressed, how does a bill become a law, and the structure, because we're also going to add the executive branch onto this. So what you can do is if you want to go on Canvas real quick, you can pause this video, but go on Canvas, go under Federalism in the Three Branches of Government, and you're going to look for a study guide called CE6 Study Guide. Civics and Economics 6, and it's a really nice typed up study guide I made, and I'm going to walk through that with you while also going over your quiz. So most of your mid-quarter coming up is going to be on the three branches of government and how they work together. So this video hopefully will help you study because your test will never just look like this, right? It's going to be those hard IA questions that make you use this but take it to the next level. So we're going to start with the Constitution. Don't forget about the preamble and the 5 goals of the preamble. Make sure you review that because right after the preamble becomes Article 1, the Constitution. Article 1, sorry, my computer just got all weird. Article 1 is the legislative branch, Congress. So you can either say, I am part of the legislative branch, or you can say, I am part of Congress. You can use those two the same way. Looking at this quiz, I wanted Article 1, legislative branch. Another name for legislative branch is Congress. Next, I have bicameral. So that prefix bi means two. Bicycle, 2 wheels. Bicameral, 2 houses. So now we have the 2 houses. You have the House of Representatives and the Senate. One good way to remember which one has more members is House of Representatives is a lot longer of a word than Senate. So House of Representatives has 435 members, and that's based on the state's population. Virginia, we're medium sized. We have 11 House of Representatives based off our population. Look at California, they have 53 House of Representatives because they have a much larger population. If something were to happen and California's population chopped in half, they wouldn't need 53 representatives. So actually, representatives would shrink in Congress and they would need less representation. House of Representatives, 435 based off population. The next house is Senate, and that number will always be 100. 100 total, 2 per state. It doesn't matter if you live in Kentucky or Alaska or Iowa, you're going to have 2 senators. So those are your 2 houses. House of Representatives, Senate, 435, 100. So what does Congress do? It's such a simple question, and yet a lot of you seem to be confused between powers and implied and how a bill becomes a law. The main job of Congress is creating laws. That's a blanket statement. They're the ones who debate the laws, write the laws, pass the laws. Okay? So we're going to start with the laws themselves. What is a law? So before a law is debated, it is a bill, right? Think of the Schoolhouse Rock. I'm just a bill, singing, I'm just a bill. You can YouTube that video, and if it will help you remember the process, do it. A bill is an idea that someone formally writes down on a piece of paper. So let's say instead of the stop sign outside of our school, we want a red light to help traffic. There's our idea. The second that we type it and mail it to our congressman, it becomes a bill. The bill gets to Congress, finally it lands on our representative's desk, and the next step is that they're going to propose the bill in the House of Representatives. Bills are always, always, always presented in the House of Representatives first. The bill's proposed, so they're going to say, today we're going to be talking about bill number 6045. Manassas Park Middle School wants a red light right outside of their school. That's the proposal. They propose it. The next step is you work in committees. If you didn't work in committees, everyone would just be screaming at each other. Think about that, 435 people screaming at each other. Nothing would ever get done. So step 2 is to work in committees. You're going to break apart in different groups. You're going to research the issue, talk about it, and then come to some kind of conclusion within your committee. Once you work in committees, then it comes to a floor debate, and this is where all the yelling and the debating starts. This is when the whole House of Representatives can debate the issue. Once the different sides debate, then you vote. Majority wins. So let's say the House, a majority vote, yes, we need a red light. Where does it go next? It goes to the Senate. Let's say they vote no, waste of money, we don't need it. It's dead. Of course, you can always try and get that bill back into Congress, but once it's dead, it's pretty much dead. If the bill passes to the Senate, the same exact steps happen in the Senate. Proposal, work in committees, floor debate, vote. If majority of the Senate says yes, it goes to the president. If a majority say no, it's pretty much dead. So once you memorize those 5 steps, they're the same for the House and the Senate. So that should be pretty simple. So that's how a bill becomes a law. Okay? Now let's go into the powers, because this is where I think you guys get confused. There's a list of powers that Congress can do. Okay? But there are 2 different kind of powers for Congress. When we were writing the Constitution, we wanted to make sure that Congress had a lot of power. Why? Because they are the most connected to the people, right? We vote for a House of Representatives every 2 years. We vote for a senator every 6 years. If we have an issue in our community, we don't run to Donald Trump and tell him about it. We're going to reach out to our representative in the House. So our founding fathers all sat down and they gave Congress a specific number of powers. Okay, there are 27 powers. For the sake of this class, you don't need to know all 27. There's just a few that you should know. So you could always turn to Article 1, Section 8 in the Constitution. Those are your express powers. But to list off a few, Congress has the power to tax. Congress has the power to control the post office, a militia, a military, foreign policy. Basically what that means is that they're physically written in the Constitution. They are physically expressed in the Constitution. I tell you guys, think of an express power as something you could physically see. You don't think about it. It's right there for you to read, like someone's facial expression. You can see my facial expression. You could read my facial expression. Expressed powers are directly listed in. So on your test, it might ask for the definition of express powers. They are specifically listed in the Constitution. The power to tax, the power to a post office, the power to foreign trade, declare war. Those are the big. And if you go back to that paper that I gave you like a week ago, it said the 5 big express powers. And I believe, I don't have the paper in front of me, it was to tax, military, declare war, foreign trade, maybe post office, not positive. But if you memorize 3 or 4 of them, then you'll be golden. And then you have implied powers. So of course, this document was ratified in 1787, so a lot has changed since then. As Congress has evolved and gotten older, as technology has gotten better, as people have gotten smarter with education, Congress realized some of these express powers are pretty old, right? They use the vocabulary word militia, but we don't really use that term anymore. We have a military, right? And as technology evolved, we started building airplanes and different kind of bombs. But it doesn't say anything in our Constitution about a nuclear warhead or a machine gun or a spaceship. So does that mean we're going to limit ourselves to just a militia? No, we're going to imply that our Constitution is going to give us the power. The Constitution is going to give us the power because if it's going to make the United States better, then we're going to do it. So implied powers are those stretch powers, right? We're going to look at the expressed and stretch it out. So expressed, specifically listed in your Constitution. Article 1, Section 8, boom, 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 boom. Implied powers are a little different, right? We're going to stretch. So an example would be NASA, right? They didn't have spaceships back in the day, but we're going to imply with the technology that we're going to use it to make it better. So those are the two different kind of powers. Expressed power, implied power, right? Then we have Congress's duties, if you will. Coin money. Coin money was the fifth major power. It just came into my mind. Okay, fast forward now. You have the duties of Congress. So the biggest one is make laws. That's Congress's main job. They're going to make laws. They're going to look over laws. They're going to look over everything the president does. Anything with a law has to go through Congress, okay? So, number one duty, make laws. 2, approve the annual budget. So this links really well with the executive branch. If you know the executive duties, you're going to remember the legislative duties because they're going to go off of each other a lot. So if the legislative branch approves a budget, who has to make a budget? The president. Confirm presidential appointments. Well, if they're confirming an appointment, who's making an appointment? The president, right? So your president gets to appoint Supreme Court justices. They can't just pick whoever they want. Congress has to give the seal of approval. Okay, so confirm presidential appointments. Taxes, that's also an express power, right? So if you can remember that as an express power and a duty, you're golden. Foreign trade, declare war, all of these duties are also express powers, right? All of that was on this quiz, right? If you can study this, you will be golden. The best way to do this, guys, is watch this video, go over the study guides, get a couple blank pieces of paper, and just do it until you understand it, all right? Next thing I want to go over quick, we're going to talk more about this later this week, but I'm going to talk about it now since we are talking about the different branches. So I want to talk about the executive branch real quick. You guys just did a really awesome project about the executive branch. So your executive branch is Article 2 of the Constitution, headed by the President, the Vice President, and the Cabinet of the United States. So Donald Trump is our current president. He is a Republican. Vice President is Mike Pence, and then you have your cabinet. So your president doesn't have expressed or implied powers. He's not making bills into laws, but he does have some of his own powers. So the main job of the executive is to execute the laws of the land. And I always do that hand motion. Executive, execute, right? If a law is made, it is the president's job to communicate that with the people and make sure that law is being enforced by the entire country. So first major duty, execute the law. Again, think about the legislative. Let's connect them. The president makes the budget. He makes appointments, right? If those are two of his duties, well then what about the legislative branch? What are their duties? Make the budget. Legislative is going to pass the budget. The president makes appointments. The legislative branch is going to confirm those appointments, right? Legislative branch makes bills into laws. The president's going to either pass or veto those bills into laws. So let's talk about vetoing. Your president can say no to a law, and that's probably his biggest and most powerful thing that he has in his deck of cards. If your president believes that a bill is not, or a law is not going to work well for the country, he can say no. Now, when we get into checks and balances, you're going to see that Congress can actually override the president, which is pretty cool. And we're going to talk more about that when we talk about the Dreamers Act. The last thing I want to talk about quick, I know we're missing the whole judicial branch, but that's a whole nother unit, my favorite unit. I want to talk about policy making with the president. So we talked about this real quick the other day, and we're going to focus more on it later this week. But your president is the face of the United States. So I've said this before, the judicial branch is the spine, right? They hold the whole body together. They oversee the Constitution. Congress is the neck, right? Depending how much support you have in Congress, laws are either going to be made in your favor or against you. And then the president's the face. When other countries look at us, they're looking at our president. He's our leader. He's the one who we're going to look to for support in natural disasters, or if we get attacked, or, if things are going really well, we're going to thank the president for that. So the executive has this very important role in policy making. And another way of that is maybe thinking laws or ideas. Your executive has to balance with the legislative branch. So some things that the president can do to work with Congress is that your president can propose legislation, right? Donald Trump can go into Congress and say, hey, I have a really great idea for a law. That doesn't mean they're going to pass it, but 2, State of the Union address. We're going to watch some clips of this, and this is your president's best method to reach the people, right? He's going to go in front of the entire Congress, the House and the Senate and the Cabinet. It's going to be televised all over America, and Donald Trump is going to say, the State of the Union. What's the emotion of the Union, the United States? Are we in a really good economic situation? Are we in a really good social situation? What do we need to work on? What can we do as the people? What can Congress do to make it better? What can him as the president do to make it better? So a State of the Union address is also important, and just connecting with the people, right? That's also his biggest job. So I want to connect that now to the different hats of the president. You got a paper about this today, part of your project. So since the president's the face of the United States, he has a lot of roles he has to take on depending on the situation. So there are 7 hats. And yes, you have to memorize these. So flashcards, take home that paper, and get to work. First hat, you have Chief of State. This is your ceremonial head of government. This is when Trump is going to light the Christmas tree in December and pardon the turkey at Thanksgiving. And when foreign leaders come to visit the United States, he's going to welcome them to the White House. It's very, celebration and very formal and very traditional United States. You have Chief Executive. This is where he's executing the law. This is where he's taking on that role of making a decision. So Trump with the Dreamers Act, the fact that he wanted to repeal that is him wearing that chief executive hat, and he's saying this isn't working out for America, so I'm going to do something about it as your chief executive. Chief legislator, proposing a legislative agenda. So Trump also wanted to get rid of Obamacare, but he wanted to in turn put in a different Trump care or a different health care plan. When he proposed that to Congress, he was wearing chief legislator hat. Commander-in-chief, a lot of you have probably heard this term before. Your president is in charge of your military, especially your army, and if we're going to war or we're already in a war, it's your president's job to communicate with all the different military leaders, maybe go overseas and visit your military bases. Chief diplomat. Diplomat means foreign. So whenever you hear the word diplomat, think foreign countries. If Trump is going overseas to visit another country, or if him and a foreign leader are planning a different kind of trade policy, he's chief diplomat. Now, don't get that confused with chief of state. If foreign leaders are coming to visit the United States, just to visit, for example, Kate Middleton and Prince William of Great Britain. They came to the United States just to visit. They weren't doing any trade policy or anything. That's chief of state. If you're talking about doing a new foreign policy, making foreign laws, making trade agreements, that's chief diplomat. Okay, so when you hear diplomat, think foreign policy. Chief of party is pretty simple. You have two major political parties in the United States, Democrat and Republican. Trump is Republican, so he's the chief of the Republican Party. Barack Obama was Democrat, so he was chief of the Democratic Party. Last, easiest, chief citizen. Hurricane Harvey, Trump went down to Texas and he met with the people and he donated money to the people and he helped with different food banks for the people. That's chief citizen, really being the role model of citizenship. Okay? I just threw a lot of information at you, so I just want to go over what you need to study. Article 1, legislative branch, know the structure, right? Legislative, Congress, bicameral, two houses, House of Representatives, Senate, 435, 100. What is the main job of Congress? Make laws. How do you make a law? How does it go from a bill to a law? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 goes to the president, and so on. You have two kinds of powers in the legislative branch, expressed and implied. Know the difference between those. And then you have that list of duties that Congress has. Remember, some of those duties are also express powers. Then let's go to the executive branch, Article 2, President, Vice President, Cabinet. We're going to talk more about the Cabinet later. These are just your different departments that help the President out. You have the duties of the President, execute the law, make a budget, make federal appointments. Remember, the legislative branch has to approve all that. He has to deal with the State of the Union address, connecting with the people. He also has the many different hats that he has to wear, which we just talked about. Hopefully this video will help you. I'm having a cold right now, so I'm kind of like a hot mess express. The best way you can do to study for this is to go home, again, get a piece of paper and do this over and over and over again until you get it. So look at the bigger picture and then go down in the details, all right? Hopefully this helps. Have a good night.